Part 32. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 311. But from the perspective of the two helicopters in mid-air, the lifeboat was the best target. Bang bang bang. Da-da-da. The machine guns and cannons on the armed helicopter fired at the same time, plowing red blood streaks on the sea. The Javanese monkeys in the sea had no time to react and immediately returned to the west. Those who were hit by the machine gun were lucky, at least there was a whole body, but those who were hit by the machine gun were cut into half, and not even the whole body could be found. Buzz the helicopter flew over again, and the soldiers on the lifeboat were hit by the cannon and instantly exploded into pieces. Toha huddled inside, covered in blood. It was not until a few minutes later that the gunship, which had run out of bullets, returned to the destroyer. John Candon directly ordered to put down the speedboat on the destroyer and arranged for the soldiers of the Huazhen to replenish their guns. If some of these people return alive, they will definitely come back to attack them. After all, the Hua formation has a tradition of leaving no survivors alive. At this time, Toha was huddled in the lifeboat with the dead body of a Javanese monkey on his body. Hearing the constant gunshots outside, he did not dare to move. Suddenly he saw the captain next to him blinking at him. It turned out that the captain was also pretending to be dead. Toha quickly put his index finger to his mouth, signaling the captain to be silent. The captain understood, nodded slightly, and continued to close his eyes. The sound of refiring was getting closer and closer. Whenever the soldiers of the Huazhen saw anyone moving on the sea, they would shoot at them. At this time, he had arrived at the lifeboat. Squad leader, there should be no survivors, right? When Toha and Toha heard the sound, they immediately held their breath and did not dare to move for fear of being discovered by the enemy. How do you know there's no one alive? Empty the bullets in the gun and see. Toha and Toha were shocked when they heard this, but now they can only pray that they won't be hit. The soldier carried out the order, and without saying a word, he swept the shuttle over the dead bodies in the lifeboat. Fortunately, Toha was hiding under the dead body and was not swept away, but several bullets penetrated the body and hit the lifeboat directly, causing wood chips to fly everywhere and causing him pain. Squad leader, there are no survivors. Well, okay. The squad leader was about to leave with a few soldiers. A soldier suddenly found that his rifle had jammed. The soldier pulled the bolt and the bullet casing jumped out. The soldier raised his gun and fired a test round at the corpse on the lifeboat. Ouch! The captain was hit in the leg by a bullet, and his position was revealed with an ouch. Mater, there are still fish that have slipped through the net, come out. The squad leader looked ugly and glared at the soldier who had just reloaded his gun. Don't kill me. The captain raised his hands and straightened up. If you want to kill him, kill him. He is Toha. The captain said, pointing at Toha, who was pretending to be dead. Toha. 10,000 grass and mud horses ran through my heart. Seeing that he couldn't hide, Toha pushed the corpse away, straightened up, and adjusted his lieutenant general's uniform. Then he took out a pistol from the gun bag on his waist, and with the captain's frightened expression, he shot the captain directly, and then threw the pistol into the sea. Yes, I am Lieutenant General Toha. I want to see your leader. Bang! Toha was directly hit to the ground by the butt of a gun. UCNMLGB, little monkey, who is the elder? Brothers, kill him. The squad leader angrily hit Toha, who was curled up, with the butt of his rifle. Seeing this, the other soldiers also took action. Martyr, you don't have many chances to beat up the Java monkey, Lieutenant General. Now you can brag when you go back. 10 minutes later, a bruised and swollen Toha was brought aboard the destroyer. John Candon looked at the miserable Toha. Are you Toha? Are you a Lieutenant General? CD, Bulletin XINNI, chop off the epaulets. Huh? I don't believe it. Beat him. Beat him hard until he tells the truth. John Kandon pointed at Toha and ordered. Toha. Naval base, in the office. You said he was Toha. Li Qing looked at him in surprise, and saw Toha, who was lying on a stretcher almost without a human form. John Kandon nodded awkwardly. I don't believe it, Li Qing carefully identified it. Toha was furious. John Kandon. John Gishan. Toha used his last strength to take off his epaulette and slapped it heavily on the ground. Forget it, destroy it. Li Qing looked at the epaulettes with the rank of lieutenant general on the ground, ahem, mainly because his appearance has changed so much that I didn't recognize him. Crow smacked his tongue, watching his eldest brother tell lies with his eyes open. They watched the speech of this bitch Toha on TV together. Everyone said they couldn't recognize them, they were lying. Okay, let's leave it at that. Take him down to recover from his injuries, and let him confess all his crimes. The Javanese monkey massacre incident was mainly designed by Toha and Shuha, so he must be very clear about what happened. As long as you get the evidence, you can raise the flag on a large scale, taking advantage of the situation and taking advantage of the fact that the Javanese government does not react, and directly capture the entire province of Liaonia. Now he sells part of the arms to various organizations of the Free National Alliance at low prices. As long as the news of the annihilation of the 3rd Division spreads, he believes that with such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the anti-government armed forces in various places will not remain silent. Ever since, when the news of the annihilation of the 3rd Division spread throughout Java, even people around the world who were paying attention to this matter were surprised by the achievements of the Chinese Freedom Front. After all, the Huajuan wiped out the Javanese 3rd Division with minimal casualties, which made some countries realize the strength of the Huajuan. After military experts from various countries systematically analyzed the strategy of the Huajuan, they found that it was not that the Huajuan fought too well, but that the humming Javanese fought too badly. The second is the gap in arms. The Huajuan side is all Soviet-made weapons, and bullets and shells are poured out like they are free. Javanese still have some weapons from World War II, and the military quality of the 3rd Division is not enough. It is usually okay to play a favorable game, but it will wither when it encounters an unfavorable game. In the end, the main general was even arrested. What is the difference between this and the South Korean army on the Korean battlefield back then? The next day, although he was made up, it was still obvious that Toha, who was treated inhumanely, gave a speech on Liaonia provincial TV in the form of a live broadcast. He admitted that the military and the government cooperated to jointly create the Javanese massacre. Since the Southeast Asian financial crisis, the public has become increasingly dissatisfied with Reha's rule. In order to continue to consolidate his position, Reha discussed with the military to create a massacre of the Chinese to divert the public's attention. Moreover, Toha also revealed the military's later plans. In the next stage, they intend to take action against Yaqi and Dongdi, taking advantage of the massacre of the Chinese to eliminate all ethnic armed forces that oppose Greater Javaism. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 312. As soon as Toha's speech came out, it caused a huge wave throughout Java. Especially in ethnic minority areas, ethnic minority people with lofty ideals began to resist Java's rule with arms. First, Hassan, the leader of the Free Aceh movement in Aceh province, declared national independence and used the means of the Chinese front to drive out and cleanse the Javanese in Aceh province. Since most of the people in Aceh province were Aceh people, the Free Aceh movement responded quickly and quickly occupied all counties in Aceh province in just 1 week. The war even burned directly to the neighboring North Sumatra province. The Free Baya movement was not to be outdone and directly declared independence in West Kalimantan province, relying on the advantage of arms to capture cities throughout West Kalimantan province. The Eastern Empire Independence Revolutionary Front did not hesitate to announce that East Kalimantan had separated from Java and quickly took over the entire East Kalimantan. Madu Independence Movement. The entire Java country was like a large powder keg, and armed independence movements in various places rose and fell one after another. In fact, Li Qing had anticipated this situation. As long as Java continued to implement Greater Javaism, the entire Java would never be at peace. Now he just ignited this problem in advance. The Huajhan directly defeated the 3rd Division, giving all the anti-government armed forces hope. In their eyes, the regular army that was originally invincible was just like this. Of course, this was also directly related to Li Qing's sale of arms at a low price. Since the advanced weapons were available, the Javanese army had no advantage. The anti-government armed forces relied on their advantages in the terrain and environment to continuously repel the Javanese regular army, which boosted the team's confidence. Yagati, military headquarters, medium-sized conference room. Toha, this traitor. I'm going to send him to the military court. Tier, the #1 military leader, shouted angrily. The entire conference room was filled with his scolding. Shuha, you are responsible for this. Toha is your brother-in-law. Shuha adjusted his Mediterranean hair. Hey, Tier, this matter was jointly decided by the government and the military, don't say that your military was not involved. Shuha glanced at Tier. In fact, he was also very angry. Toha, this bastard, also gave him out. Fortunately, the Javanese government held a press conference and said that Toha was coerced, and most people believed it. After all, the wound on Toha's face could not be covered. Now it has become like this, what do you say we should do? Tier has been confused by the revolutions all over Java. Now the news is that a certain county has been captured and a certain military camp has been raided. He doesn't know where those poor guys got so many arms. Ahem, I know what you are worried about, it's nothing more than the sudden increase in the combat power of the anti-government armed forces. Shuha smiled mysteriously and looked at Tier. Tier glanced at him and knew that this old guy must know something. If you have anything to say, please speak up. Haha, don't be impatient. In fact, all this has something to do with Li Qing, the leader of the Chinese Freedom Front. In fact, Li Qing has had little contact with Java, and only the official leaders in Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, and other places who are on good terms with him know his true identity. Shuha also accidentally learned about Li Qing's true identity. Li Qing, Talay narrowed his eyes. In fact, Li Qing's true identity is a major arms dealer in Southeast Asia, and he has some friendship with Southeast Asian countries. Moreover, he is also the leader of the transnational gang organization New World, and he is very powerful in Southeast Asia and East Asia. When Talay heard the news, he was stunned for a moment. Why didn't we know it earlier? Shuha had a gloomy face and snorted, it's not hard to guess, some countries have blocked the news from us. Talay realized something instantly, nodded, and his face began to darken. Chinese, Then Tier said, the situation is clear now, mainly on the Chinese array. As long as the Chinese array is eliminated, other anti-government armed forces can be easily destroyed. Shuha smiled sinisterly, yes, especially this Li Qing. If he is gone, I believe the Chinese array will disband immediately. Shuha knew the key point, and he also knew the principle of shooting the horse first and capturing the king first. Well, but we can't ignore the others. Let's start with the anti-government armed forces of Yaqi, Chinese array, Baya, and Tonga. I want to let them know how powerful the military is. The 3rd Division is just a waste. After Tier finished speaking, he glanced at Shuha without any purpose. Shuha. At this time, Li Qing was not idle either. He continued to recruit Chinese who came to join the army. The number of troops in the Chinese array directly reached more than 50,000. They successively conquered Dushi, Fengxian, Jili County, Loxia County, Jingxin County, Baijin County, and Xiaoying County. It can be said that the Huachuan has conquered more than half of the 2 cities and 9 counties in Liaoning province. Of course, a new round of cleansing operations has also been launched in the conquered counties. Throughout Su Island, there was a cleansing operation in Asa in the northwest and a cleansing operation by the Huachuan in the southwest. A large number of Javanese monkeys began to pour into North Su province, causing conflicts between the original residents and refugees in North Su province. It can be said that the Javanese monkeys in the entire Su Island had a very difficult life. The Javanese began to flee Su Island with their families and went to Java Island where there were more Javanese monkeys. At this time, the military had to make a statement. The number 1 military leader, Ter, made a speech on Java TV, saying that 100,000 ground forces and 30,000 navy forces would be sent to quell the rebellion. Li Qing sat in the conference room and watched the military speech with the senior officials of the Huachuan. The Huachuan was obviously on the list of rebels to be quelled, and it was quite high. Facing the Javanese army's quelling of the rebellion, Li Qing had expected it. Now the strength of the Huachuan has grown rapidly. He believes that the military strength should be able to compete with the Javanese military. "Brother, it seems that Java is determined to fight us," Gao Jin said softly. "Come if you want, who's afraid of who?" Zhang Qiandan said softly. "Humph, we are not so easy to control now," Crow touched his bandaged hand and groaned. "Okay, the battle must be fought. Make good deployment. I think Java will start the action next week," Li Qing said softly. So soon, Gao Jin was stunned. "You have to know that if hundreds of thousands of troops are to be mobilized, the logistics support alone will take a week to prepare, plus the army assembly." Li Qing nodded. "They are coming for us." "Brother, you mean, the focus is on us?" Zhang Qiandan asked in surprise. "If I were the commander of Java, I would definitely destroy the Huachuan first," Li Qing said with a smile. The others thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay, let's not talk about other things. My family is going to evacuate the overseas Chinese. Organize those who want to go home. Someone will come to my family the day after tomorrow." Li Qing stood up and looked at the beach outside the window and said, "A few days ago, my family asked Huo Dong to ask about the model of Li Qing's nuclear warhead. He received a call from Mr. Huo yesterday, saying that someone from his family would come to evacuate the overseas Chinese the day after tomorrow, and when they left, they would drop off a courier on an uninhabited island and let him pick it up himself." "Dongfeng Express, mission accomplished," Li Qing muttered as he looked at the turbulent coast. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 313. Brother, what should we do with Toha? Let him eat and drink for free here. As the executioner of the massacre of Chinese in Java, Toha has been detained in the Chinese front camp since he pointed out the crimes of Shuha and the military. Oh, I forgot about him. Li Qing patted his forehead. There were too many things happening recently and he forgot about this matter. Gishan, chop him up. Since he is so keen on killing Chinese, let him taste the taste of being killed. Okay, brother. Zhang Gishan smiled grimly and walked out. When it comes to chopping people, he is not sleepy. As a fisherman since childhood, he is a good hand at chopping fish or people. Li Qing was not interested in paying attention to this little thing and went back to his room to rest. The day of evacuating overseas Chinese came in a flash. Zhang Qiandan and others have organized the Chinese who are willing to return to China, but the result is unexpected. The number of people is not large, it can be said to be very small, only about 1,000 people. Most of these 1,000 people migrated here in recent years. Those second and third generations are unwilling to leave Java, they have adapted to life here. Most people were born in Java, and their impression of their hometown is learned from the words of their elders. Li Qing had no choice but to implement the principle of voluntariness in this situation. Some Taiwanese people wanted to evacuate with their hometown. After Li Qing asked, their hometown agreed to take them back to China. At around 9 o'clock in the morning, several ships from their hometown entered the Zik port, and the general leading the team was Major General Qi Gang. This Major General participated in the self-defense counterattack against Yu, and in the battle for Lishan, he repelled countless Yuan monkeys, and stepped from the king of soldiers to the Major General step by step. Before the ship docked, Qi Gang could see the bumpy bullet holes on the port, and some dark red blood stains had not been cleaned up. After the baptism of war, he certainly knew that the Zik port must have gone through an offensive and defensive battle. He began to be curious about Li Qing. If this Li Qing had been born 50 years earlier, he might have achieved a greater career. But now is not bad. In a short period of time, he became the leader of the largest anti-government armed forces in Java. This is not something that can be done by luck. Especially when he heard that Li Qing had obtained the nuclear warhead, he still remembered the expression of his boss's eyes almost popping out. The whole conference room seemed to be paused. Everyone looked at each other in astonishment. It took a long time to calm down. The matter was too serious. After 2 hours of discussion, a decision was made. Help, it must be helped. But the help must be concealed, so the hometown quickly organized personnel to manufacture Dongfeng guided missile vehicles suitable for Ermao nuclear warheads. Taking advantage of the evacuation of overseas Chinese, they secretly transported the things and threw them on the uninhabited island. As for who picked them up, they didn't know. General, the ship has docked. Qi Gang came back to his senses after being reminded by the deputy next to him. Seeing a young man waiting with some soldiers at the port. Although the young man's skin was somewhat tanned by ultraviolet rays, it still couldn't hide his three-dimensional facial features. Especially his deep eyes, which occasionally flashed a trace of murderous aura. Well, you are worthy of being a man who survived the cruel war. Qi Gang had a little more appreciation for Li Qing. Haha, General Qi, hello. I have heard of you for a long time. Li Qing took the lead in extending his hand to shake hands with Qi Gang. Feeling the calluses on the general's hands, he could tell that he was a man who held a gun all year round. General Li, I have heard of you for a long time too. Qi Gang smiled and shook Li Qing's hand vigorously. Our China was the first country to evacuate its citizens among all countries. Thank you General Li for your assistance. The evacuation of citizens from other countries was also underway, but the Javanese government was now busy with military deployment and had no time to take care of foreigners. So they did not help organize the evacuation, but Liaoning province was the first to complete the assembly of evacuees. This also made China stand out in the international arena. As a Chinese, it should be. Li Qing said with a smile. Qi Gang's eyes flashed, and he instantly understood what Li Qing meant. Although there is only one word difference between Chinese and Chinese, the meanings reflected in them are completely different. Okay. In order to thank General Li, my hometown asked me to bring some specialties. You can pick them up yourself when you have time. Qi Gang stuffed the note in his hand into Li Qing's hand. Li Qing stroked the note and said with a smile, "Thank you for the concern of the elderly at home. I will do my best to protect the Chinese in Java. There are too many gossips outside. Some things are really inconvenient for my hometown to take action. Please forgive me." Qi Gang said with a little apology. Li Qing smiled and waved his hand. "I just can't stand the brutality of Java. What does what I did have to do with my family?" Qi Gang nodded and said nothing. The official evacuation began, and the Chinese began to walk towards the Chinese warships. A trembling old woman came over with the help of her children. After seeing Li Qing, she pushed away the children around her and bowed deeply to Li Qing. "Old man, you can't do that." Li Qing hurried forward to help. "General, you are our benefactor. If it weren't for you, we would all die under the butcher's knife of Java," the old woman said with tears in her eyes, holding Li Qing's hand tightly. "General, take care. I will build a shrine for you at home, chant scriptures day and night, and bless you to live 100 years. Old man, take care, I also wish you a long life." The old woman walked slowly onto the ship, and kept looking back at Li Qing, as if she wanted to imprint his appearance in her mind. No matter whether it was men, women, old people, or children, they would bow deeply when they saw Li Qing, and say with tears in their eyes, "General, take care." The sound of "take care" moved Qi Gang greatly. He did not expect that Li Qing could be respected by so many people. His evaluation of Li Qing in his heart rose again. Qi Gang watched that most of the Chinese had boarded the ship. "General Li, we are leaving, and we will see you again if we are lucky." After that, he shook hands with Li Qing heavily. "Take care." Li Qing smiled and nodded. The whistle sounded, and the Chinese on the ship waved goodbye to Li Qing and others. Qi Gang stood on the deck, with his upper body upright, raised his right hand and saluted Li Qing. Li Qing's eyes were moved, and he clenched his right fist and hit his chest hard. A feeling of mutual appreciation arose between the two iron-blooded men. The Chinese ship went farther and farther away, and soon became a black dot. Li Qing took out a small piece of paper and looked at it. There was a coordinate and two codes written on the small piece of paper. The gift from home was at this coordinate. The coordinates were fine, but the code made Li Qing grin. "Tuhachi, prepare the supply ship, take people, and go out with me." Li Qing did not delay, and he had to get it as soon as possible to avoid more trouble. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 314. On an unnamed island, a transport ship was stranded with more than 30 people lying on the ship, who looked like fishermen. "Platoon commander, how long are we going to lie down? I feel like we're going to be dried out in the sun," a young soldier said softly. "Close your eyes quickly and don't make any sound," platoon leader Wang Yangjia scolded with half-open eyes. They all volunteered to carry out this secret mission. The superiors required that the goods be delivered safely, and they were also asked to stay and follow the arrangements. People like him have been out in the sun for a long time, and no one has come to pick them up, which makes him feel a little impatient. Li Qing squinted at the transport ship not far away, and asked someone to compare the coordinates. "Well, it looks like this, is it?" The supply ship slowly approached the stranded transport ship, and Li Qing looked down at the dozens of fishermen lying on the deck. "Brother, are they sunbathing or performing performance art?" The crow scratched his head and looked at the fishermen curiously. Li Qing. If his guess is correct, this is the gift brought to him by his hometown, but it doesn't look very smart. Care and hard work can rejuvenate a country. Li Qing tried to shout. "I saw a 1.8-meter tall man on the deck standing up. You can rest your mind by closing your eyes." Li Qing rolled his eyes. "Yeah, that's right. Okay, everyone, get up. The person to pick us up has arrived," Wang Yangjia whispered. After a while, more than 30 people formed a formation. "General, the special platoon of the 5th Missile Communication Regiment is reporting to you." "Okay, you're all oiled up now, let's follow you quickly." Li Qing looked at the oily big-headed soldiers and said with a smile. Wang Yangjia immediately arranged for his men to start the transport ship and closely follow the supply ship in front. "Platoon commander, I think our new commander has a good character." The soldier approached Wang Yangjia with a smile. "Well, it looks like he's doing well." "He's not a rigid person," Wang Yangjia said with a smile. "The guy inside is installing something, You don't know, right? This guy has a nuclear warhead. A group of people whispered. They were also surprised when they received the mission. You must know that after World War II, they dropped 2 nuclear bombs in their childhood. I have never heard of any warlord having a nuclear bomb. If you are not careful, this thing will cause a world war. Nuclear bombs are used to shock. If you launch them, the shock effect will disappear. Wang Yangjia smiled and said that he knew in his heart that it was impossible to launch a nuclear bomb unless it reached the point of death. But I believe no one would dare to push a warlord with a nuclear bomb to that extent. Li Qing on the supply ship looked at the list that had just been sent from Wang Yangjia. This time, his hometown not only provided missile vehicles and a large amount of munitions. They also supported more than 30 technical soldiers, which Li Qing did not expect. These technical soldiers are all precious little beasts. You must take good care of the crows, Li Qing instructed. Brother, how can I take care of her? The Javanese female monkey is too ugly, so I can't do it. Crow's face showed embarrassment. Li Qing. A sudden blow came over. Is this the only color in your mind? Your life is guaranteed. No. Is there anyone who can't find someone from abroad? Pig brain. Crow looked at Li Qing's back in shock. Huh? There's something wrong. Brother, wait a minute. After arriving at the CK naval base, Li Qing happily looked at the Dongfeng-11 missile vehicle. What I sold to Saudi Arabia was the Dongfeng-3, and what I sold to Pakistan Railway was the Dongfeng-11 ballistic missile vehicle in front of me. I heard that Pakistan Railway's missile trucks are loaded with nuclear warheads and travel on the road every day. Once they received the news that Pakistan Railways was attacked by Asan, Dongfeng Express carrying nuclear warheads went directly to New Delhi. From then on, Asan only dared to play small tricks, but never dared to cross the line even once. Not bad, Xiao Wang, see if you can transform it into a Soviet style. Li Qing looked at the missile vehicle. It looked like the style of his hometown. It was too obvious. Just be like Armazi and push everything to Armazi. How dare you buy a nuclear bomb without matching it? Damn it. General, yes. But can you stop calling me Xiao Wang? I always feel like you are calling me a puppy. Wang Yangjia scratched his head and said with a smile. No problem, Xiao Wang. Work hard, you've done a great job, and I'll reward you with 5 large tile-roofed houses in the country. Li Qing said jokingly. Wang Yangjia. Philippines, Manila. In a high-end bar, Zhang Dongzhou drank unhappily, and his eldest brother once again rejected his suggestion to bring someone to support him. Brother Dongzhou, don't be angry. Brother Crow is serious. Didn't he just kill dozens of Java monkeys? Just to show off. His subordinate was drinking wine with Zhang Dongzhou and complaining about the crow. Crow calls Zhang Dongzhou from time to time these days. Today he captured a certain county, how many monkeys were killed today, and a foreign girl was saved today. Anyway, he stimulated Brother Dongzhou all day long, causing him to have stomach bleeding during the 2 days of drinking and drinking. Hearing this, Zhang Dongzhou glared at his subordinate. Did you say that about the crow? Come on, drink. The subordinate made a grimace, picked up the wine glass, pinched his nose and drank it all in one gulp. His expression was no less than drinking pesticide. Brother Dongzhou, if it doesn't work out, let's make some trouble for Java. The subordinate's eyes rolled, and he racked his brains not to drink. Zhang Dongzhou put down his glass and became interested. Come on, keep talking. The younger brother blinked. How about assassinating Javanese businessmen? Zhang Dongzhou shook his head. What kind of idea is this? No matter how many businessmen you assassinate, Java doesn't care, not to mention that there are Javanese businessmen in the Philippines. But the younger brother's idea gave Zhang Dongzhou an idea. We can assassinate Javanese officials. Zhang Dongzhou smiled sinisterly. Javanese officials? Brother, you mean? Yes, the Javanese embassy. Zhang Dongzhou's eyes were burning. The Javanese embassy in the Philippines also belongs to Java. Blowing it up can be regarded as supporting the elder brother. Haha, get ready to do something big. Zhang Dongzhou put down his glass and walked out of the bar with his younger brother. The next night, the Javanese embassy in the Philippines collapsed with a huge roar, and even the surrounding buildings were affected, shattering the glass of 2 streets. Although the Philippines dispatched various rescue operations, unfortunately, all the staff of the Javanese embassy in the Philippines died. At this time, Shuha had just finished a phone call with the Philippine president about the explosion in the embassy. Asshole, it was clearly a terrorist attack, but you insisted on saying it was a gas explosion. Why didn't the gas explosion hit the American embassy next door? Shuha pounded on the table in frustration. But there was no way. The official investigation in the Philippines now said it was a gas explosion. He knew it must have been done by several anti-government armed forces, but he didn't know which one was responsible. He had to urge TIR to send troops quickly to encircle and suppress all these rioters. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Bulletin Liang. Chapter 315. Li Qing just hung up the call from Zhang Dongzhou and said with a smile, Dongzhou's brain is really useful. The Javanese embassy was bombed this time, which is enough to scratch your head. Li Qing doesn't mind causing some chaos to the Javanese government overseas. After all, the more chaos, the better for him. After hearing the compliments given by his eldest brother Li Qing to Zhang Dongzhou, Crow frowned. No matter how awesome Zhang Dongzhou is, why don't I accompany him now? The explosion of the Javanese embassy in the Philippines did not cause a big stir in the international community. But what happened one after another in the next few days made Shuha's whole body numb. New World members everywhere imitated Zhang Dongzhou's approach. The embassy in Malaysia was bombed, and no embassy staff was spared. On the evening of the 26th, the Javanese embassy in Thailand exploded and caused a fire. Unfortunately, all the embassy staff were killed. In the early morning of the 27th, a fire broke out at the Javanese embassy in Vietnam, and all personnel were unfortunately killed. What is strange is that the people who were burned to death seemed to have no struggle. At the same time, the Javanese embassy in Myanmar was suddenly attacked by Golden Triangle warlords, and everyone was killed by execution. In the early morning of the 28th, the Javanese embassy in South Korea suffered an explosion due to a ruptured natural gas pipeline, and all staff were unfortunately killed. At the same time, the Javanese embassy in Japan. Basically, Javanese embassies in various countries in Southeast Asia and East Asia were attacked, and all personnel died. No, that's not right. The Javanese embassy in China is still alive, but its life is very difficult. First, the entrance of the embassy was painted with black paint, and then someone continued to throw human excrement at the Javanese embassy. It made the whole embassy stink, especially in the summer. The smell simply made the Javanese monkeys want to die. There are vehicles honking around the Java embassy 24 hours a day, causing the entire Java embassy staff to have a mental breakdown. 2 of them even had heart problems and died suddenly. Disgusting fly larvae were also found on the food they ate. Some of them didn't find out until they were halfway through eating, and they vomited for 2 hours. After calling the police, the Chinese police also arrested several instigators. Their reason was to avenge the massacred compatriots. Since no casualties were caused, the Chinese police gave him a verbal education and let him go. Unexpectedly, a few more people came the next day. In the end, the Javanese ambassador couldn't bear it anymore and called Shuha every day, asking to return to China, saying that life in China was worse than death, and the living environment was worse than a sin's. He has had diarrhea for 2 days. Javanese embassies overseas were bombed one after another, and the international community also saw the clues. It was obvious that someone was deliberately targeting Java. In the following days, even the Javanese embassies in several countries in South America were attacked. At the same time, several gangs in South America unabashedly announced that they were responsible. What people didn't expect was that the Javanese embassy in the United States was also destroyed. The mafia of the beautiful country is a bachelor, and directly admitted that it was done by itself. The reason is that everyone else has done it, and it would be shameful not to do it. Look, is this human talk? Has bombing Javanese embassies become a popular thing around the world? Don't you have sympathy? Shuha angrily accused at the press conference. But a sentence from a Chinese reporter choked him back. Is the Chinese massacre in Java also popular? As far as I know, more than 10,000 Chinese have died at the hands of Javanese butchers. Are the Chinese not more miserable than the staff of the Javanese embassy who were bombed? Don't you have any sympathy? President Shuha, please explain. Shuha's face turned pale and he remained silent, and the press conference ended in a hurry. After the meeting, Shuha directly called the military's number 1 Tale. Tale, now I ask you to send troops to destroy the Hua formation immediately. I don't know what else they will do next. Shuha also hated the Huazhen. There was a shadow of Huazhen behind all these things, so his tone of voice when talking to Ter was also pleading, which had never happened before. But, is it too hasty to send troops now? Ter said hesitantly. At present, the logistics support is not fully prepared. These 100,000 people are fed by horses every day, and all they have to pay is money. What are you waiting for? The whole of Java is in chaos now. Anti-government forces are attacking cities and territories everywhere. By the time you set off, it will be too late. The most important thing now is the Chinese formation. As long as the Chinese formation is destroyed, everything else will not matter. It's just straw bag. Shuha kept bewitching. Ter also knew that the current situation was very unfavorable to Java, so he gritted his teeth and said, okay, I will send 60,000 army and 5 naval formations there first. After hearing this, Shuha put a smile on his face. At this time, Li Qing also received news that Tari's army was on the way, and its target was the Hua formation as he had guessed. Gao Jin, let Liani TV station come over. I want to give a speech. Li Qing lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying. Okay, big brother. Gao Jin quickly walked out of the door to make arrangements. Brother, shouldn't we deploy our troops? Why are we still giving a speech? Crow asked curiously. Do you know what it means to surrender without fighting? That's what I am. No one knows about the fact that he has nuclear weapons. How can he use it to scare Java? Is it really going to be launched? If there were 2 nuclear bombs, we could try it, but now there is only 1. Nuclear deterrence, the most important word is deterrence. It's quite refreshing after the launch. A large number of Javanese monkeys died, and then what? Then Java mobilized the whole country to destroy the Chinese front and even cleansed all the Chinese in Java. The TV station arrived soon and set up the equipment on the playground of the naval base. My fellow Chinese people all over the world, I am Li Qing, the leader of the Chinese Freedom Front. I feel very heavy here. The Javanese government massacred our compatriots and now has sent 100,000 troops to encircle us. We have no choice but to fight. Even if we know we are defeated, we Chinese front will not stop, because we are the future of the Javanese Chinese. My fellow Chinese people, we fight for every oppressed person. If the Soviet Union is to protect glory and China is to defend the country, then the Chinese front is to fight for freedom and ideals. We will fight to the last soldier in the charge and long live shouts. At this time, the Chinese front soldiers behind him had a firm face, raised their guns, and shouted long live the Chinese front. When the voice fell a little, Li Qing continued, Of course, we are not without trump cards. Here I want to thank our friends, the Ukrainian government, who provided us with guided missile vehicles carrying nuclear warheads. The camera immediately turned to the missile vehicle, and saw dozens of soldiers with obvious Nazi descent standing in front of the missile vehicle, mercenaries brought by Tianyang Sheng. Let's burn together when we can't hold on any longer. Li Qing stood in front of the camera and said firmly. The next step is to wait for the fermentation of international public opinion. Li Qing really wants to know the expressions of Xu Ha, Tailei, and others after seeing this speech. Well, it must be very interesting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 316. Huachen became the first anti-government armed force with long-range nuclear strike capability. The news spread throughout the world within just 1 hour. In the small conference room of Rabbit Zonghai, several bigwigs were sitting separately, watching Li Qing's impassioned speech on TV. Haha, although I had expected this to happen, I was still surprised to see his speech now. This evacuation is also thanks to him. Apart from anything else, there is still patriotism. Hearing the words of the two bigwigs in the conference room, they all nodded, and looked at Li Qing on TV with curiosity. Huo Dong, who was drinking tea at home thousands of miles away, also smiled and watched TV. His friend was very courageous. It is estimated that taking out such a big treasure will cause chaos in the whole Java. He was right. After Li Qing's speech, the wealthy businessmen with some ability in Jakarta were all rich and ran to nearby Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, etc. Anyway, none of them stayed in Java to wait for death. They don't want to taste the tragic fate of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Small meeting room of the Javanese military. The Linia provincial TV station in front of the TV was constantly broadcasting Li Qing's speech. All the senior officials of the Javanese military and political parties sat in chairs with pale faces. President, now is the time to fight or make peace, you make a decision. President, nuclear bombs are not a joke, I suggest that we sit down and talk, at least listen to the other party's requirements. At the moment of life and death, I suggest that the parliament vote on this matter, and if necessary, hold a general election in advance. The entire meeting room was filled with opinions from various factions, and the spearhead was directly pointed at Xu Ha. Xu Ha finally calmed down everyone's emotions and promised to solve it as soon as possible, and then sent these people out, leaving only Ter. Xu Ha was like a bereaved mother, slumped in the chair, staring at the ceiling without spirit. Nuclear weapons, there is no nuclear country in the whole of Southeast Asia, and the nuclear weapons of the Huachen were made out of thin air. Xu Ha leaned back in the chair and said with his eyes closed. These days, Java's embassies in various countries have been in turmoil, and those surviving ambassadors are clamoring to return home. Ter wiped his face and glanced at the livid Xu Ha next to him. Damn, you are the one who did all this. If you hadn't been massacring the Chinese, would there be so many messes? How the hell do I know that Li Qing can get nuclear weapons? The two began to fight among themselves and curse each other. In Xu Ha's cognition, Li Qing is just a relatively large arms dealer, and there are many arms dealers like him in the world. Who knew that he actually got nuclear weapons? Could it be that he was like Lao Ba, who picked up a nuclear bomb and took it home while grazing sheep? It's too outrageous. Stop arguing. I think the nuclear weapons of the Huachen may be fake, and Li Qing used them to deceive us. Xu Ha sighed and said with a 1 in 10,000 possibility. Forget it, don't you see that the traitor hasn't replied yet? I guess he is being scolded like a grandson now. Ter rolled his eyes and looked at Xu Ha with disdain. At this time, as he expected, Urmasi was being watched by the 5 permanent members of the unconference. Please answer directly, are the nuclear weapons of the Hwajhan sold by you? The representative of the Eagle Sauce looked at the representative of Urmasi with a serious expression. The representative of Urmasi pursed his lips tightly and said, ahem, isn't denuclearization in accordance with what you want, Eagle Sauce? You may not believe it, but we only sold nuclear warheads, not guided missiles. All the representatives of countries rolled their eyes, with a look of I don't believe you. The dozens of people standing next to the missile vehicle on TV have obvious Slavic ancestry. Do you think everyone is blind? Besides, who sells mobile phones without a data cable? Who sells silicone girlfriends without lubricants? Which foot massage parlor does not provide special services? You said that you only sell nuclear warheads, not missiles. Do you think they are fools? What's the use of nuclear warheads alone? Buy them to generate electricity? What's the difference between eating noodles with garlic, dumplings without vinegar, and pancakes without green onions? Isn't this a robber? Seeing the atmosphere on the scene becoming more and more awkward, De Mao on the side spoke up, the current situation, how to solve this matter. Eagle Sauce pays the most attention to human rights, and doesn't want the nuclear bomb to really hit Yagati, right? The Eagle Sauce representative glanced at Demazi, and then looked at the expressionless Rabbit representative next to him. What do you think, Rabbit? The Rabbit representative cleared his throat. What do you think? Now the Chinese front has long-range nuclear strike capabilities. I think the most important thing is to urge the Javanese government to reconcile with the Chinese front, otherwise it is very likely to start a nuclear war. How about this, Eagle Sauce, you come forward, and we, the 5 permanent members, jointly urge both sides to stop fighting. After all, peace can win-win. Demazi, well, it's a good idea. I second it. Eagle Sauce. John Bull. Gallic Rooster. Although the Rabbit is trying to smooth things over, there is really no better way now. Eagle Sauce, evil man, you can't sell your nuclear bombs anymore, destroy them within a certain time. Evil man, in fact, we really didn't. Rabbit, okay, it's a great virtue to admit your mistakes and correct them. Everyone. Soon after, Shuha received a notice from the Eagle Sauce requiring Java and the Chinese front to be very angry, otherwise the unpeacekeeping force would not mind entering Java to maintain peace. Coward, too humming cowardly. I was not afraid in Jakarta, but the United States was afraid. Fight. Let Li Qing fight, I see if he dares. Shuha was helpless and jumped in the office, venting hysterically. Ter sat on the sofa and watched Shuha's performance. Come on, what are you doing here? Don't you just want me to negotiate with Li Qing? Ter had seen through Shuha's mind a long time ago. With Shuha's courage, he would never have the courage to negotiate with Li Qing. Everyone knows one thing, Li Qing never shows mercy to the Javanese monkeys who massacred the Chinese. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Shuha's face. Ahem, it's really inappropriate for me to come forward. I'll leave this matter to you. Ter stood up and patted Shuha on the shoulder. Why would you say such a thing in our relationship? Don't worry. Shuha looked at Ter with emotion and shook Ter's hands tightly. Ter turned around, a smile appeared on his face, and strode towards the door. He didn't know that behind him, Shuha was also looking at him sinisterly. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 317. Brother, the Java fleet that was originally heading towards Six suddenly headed towards East Timor. Gao Jing quickly reported to Li Qing after learning the news. This Java fleet is also interesting. It clamored to destroy the Chinese formation with great fanfare. After Li Qing finished his speech, he turned directly to East Timor. Haha, don't worry. I found out that this fruit is made of steel. Of course I have to find a soft persimmon to squeeze it. Li Qing waved his hand and continued to lower his head and read today's newspaper. In the international section of the newspaper, ERMZ has already issued a message to destroy all nuclear warheads within a time limit, and stated that the nuclear bomb of the Huazhen was lost accidentally and was not deliberately bought or sold. Tisk, tisk, it seems that I have offended ERMZ this time. It will be difficult to get a large number of cheap weapons in the future. Li Qing patted the newspaper and chuckled. He had expected this kind of consequences, so he was not very disappointed. Fortunately, he bought the arsenal and the weapons produced were sufficient for the time being. It seems that we need to find more supplies. Brother, I received news that the Javanese military tier wants to sit down and talk with you about the conflict between the two sides. Zhang Qiandan came to Li Qing and whispered. Oh, it's not a rat, that's interesting. Li Qing put the newspaper on the table, touched his chin and nodded. Tell him back, okay. According to his idea, the Chinese front and Java will definitely have to talk. Under the pressure of international public opinion, it is very likely that President Shuha will come in person. He had already made arrangements, and he would definitely not let Shuha go back alive, but he didn't expect Shuha to be so courageous. Li Qing's eyes turned. It seemed that Java was more afraid of nuclear weapons than he thought. In this case, he call Tian Yangsheng and Tuhachi in, Li Qing said loudly. After a while Tian Yangsheng and Tuhachi came in. Li Qing stood next to the Java map. Yangsheng, Tuhachi, I will give you 2 days. No matter what method you use, you must capture this place. Li Qing's palm covered an archipelago, and Tuhachi looked at the location on the map. It was the location of the Liaonai Islands. The most interesting thing is that the northernmost tip of the Liaonai Islands happens to border the Zhengmu Shoal at the southernmost tip of China. The strategic location of the Liaonai Islands is also extremely important. It can be said to be the gate of Liaonia province. If Java goes out of its way to directly blockade the Liaonai Islands in the future, the entire Chinese formation will be equivalent to being strangled by the throat. That's why Li Qing asked the two men to capture the Liaonai Islands before Terray arrived, forming the established fact that the Hua formation occupied Liaonai province and the Liaonai Islands. It is impossible for Li Qing to return the meat that he swallowed in his stomach. The two set off immediately after receiving the news. There was no dedicated troop transport ship yet, so they had to use destroyers, supply ships, and several cargo ships as troop transport ships. He immediately led people to capture the Liaonai Islands and captured most of the islands effortlessly. In other words, it took a little longer to clean the monkey. But the two most important islands, Bataan and Bintan, encountered a lot of resistance. After all, there were a lot of Javanese garrison troops on these two islands. The Huazhen side also suffered a lot of casualties. The most important thing is that the Huazhen destroyer encountered the Javanese navy on the northern expedition to East Timor at sea, which delayed some time. The Javanese naval formation that ended its northern expedition to East Timor was obviously stronger than the Chinese formation. On board a Javanese naval ship. Opposite the general is the destroyer of the Huazhen. Should we destroy it? The adjutant said bitterly, looking at the destroyer in the distance. His hometown is in Liaoning province, and his family members were all eliminated by the Huazhen, and he wanted to kill each other from the bottom of his heart. Yu Shenjing Bing, there are nuclear weapons on the opposite side. Now General Tier is rushing to CK to negotiate with the Chinese formation. What do you want to do? But the other side is obviously attacking Bataan Island, and the defenders on the island have asked us for help. The adjutant said impatiently. So? No one can act rashly without an order from the military boss. The Navy Admiral glared at the adjutant. Whoever makes a fuss at this time is mentally retarded, don't you know? I don't want the black gauze hat on my head anymore. But it doesn't make sense if you don't take any action at all. Let's let someone shout and warn the Huazhen. The Navy admiral nodded and came up with a good idea. After a while, a broken Chinese message came from the Javanese naval formation: "Attention, your troops have entered our Javanese waters, please turn back immediately." John Qiandan on the destroyer Hua Zhen dug his ears and said, "This Javanese monkey speaks Chinese, why is he so angry? Give me the microphone." John Qiandan took the microphone. "The Liaonai Islands belong to the Huajhen, so don't make such nonsense." John Qiandan's reply almost made the Javanese Navy angry to death, and the Navy chief was also furious. "Let me tell you, Huajhen destroyer, if you continue to move forward, I will take eviction measures." John Qiandan didn't dare to show weakness. "Don't push me, if you have the guts, shoot the radar at me." The adjutant was so angry that he pulled out his pistol and ran out of the command cabin, pointing a magazine in the direction of the Huajhen destroyer. John Qiandan was stunned for a moment when he heard the gunfire, and then said with great joy, "Hurry up and call your brother and tell him that Java is firing on us." Li Qing was shocked when he received the call. He didn't expect the Javanese Navy to be so sophisticated. After he understood the cause and effect of the incident, he realized that the shooting happened several sea miles away. Li Qing smiled and asked someone to issue a statement quickly: "Our unit has been attacked by the Java Navy in the waters of the Liaonai Islands. If you do not stop it, we will take further action and do not promise to give up the use of nuclear weapons." International public opinion quarreled again, and the entire Liaonai province was like a powder keg, as if it would explode if it was not careful. After Tir learned the news, he scolded the Navy commander. Not long after, the Java Navy retreated to Ximen Island in disgrace and ignored Batan Island's request for help. John Qiandan and Tuhachi led the team to successfully capture Batan Island and Bintan Island. Through this incident, Li Qing also discovered the shortcomings of the Huajhen, that is, the weak naval power. But this matter cannot be solved in a short time, and it can only be done slowly. He believes that only when the economy of Liaonai province improves, there will be money to buy large warships. Li Qing was also prepared for Tir's arrival, and all security issues were handed over to AO and others who had just arrived. The security guarantee here is not the protection of Li Qing, but the security guarantee arranged by Li Qing for Tir. He guessed that someone definitely didn't want the two sides to reach a settlement. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 318. Tally stood on the deck of the ship, looking at the sunset in the distance, smoking a cigar in his mouth, and the smoke kept coming out of his mouth and drifting away in the wind. "General, it's windy on the deck, you'd better go back to the cabin." Lieutenant General Tizia put his coat on Tir. Tir was stunned. "How many years have you been with me, Tizia?" 15 years, General." "It's been 15 years. Time flies so fast. We don't have much time." Tir murmured softly, and even Tizia beside him didn't hear what he said clearly. "General, why don't we take the Air Force's special plane?" Tizia asked a question that had puzzled him for a long time. "Air Force? Haha, those are Shuha's people." It turns out that Tari came to this position from Admiral of the Navy, and the Navy has always been the leading position among the three armed forces. Just like Shuha was on guard against him, Tir was always on guard against Shuha. Because he is a Sundanese, and as the second largest ethnic group in Java, the Sundanese have been following the Javanese in recent years. His purpose of coming to negotiate with Li Qing this time is not pure. The Sunda people have been the second child for thousands of years, and they also want to squeeze out the mountain that is weighing them down and take a trip to Nanbo Bay. In addition, the massacre of Chinese people was caused by Shuha. National revolutions are taking place across the country, and Shuha has an unshirkable responsibility. This was an excellent opportunity to overthrow the Javanese rule, so upon hearing Shuha's request, he immediately agreed without any hesitation. His plan is to unite all ethnic minorities to overthrow Shuha's rule, and leeching is his first and most important goal. Tizia, who was behind him, looked at Tyr with an inexplicable expression and said nothing. Time passed quickly, and at noon the next day, Tyr arrived at the port of Sik with his negotiating team. Haha, hello, General Tyr. Leeching laughed and shook Tyr's hand affectionately. Tyr looked at the guided missile vehicle not far away and his cheeks twitched. Leeching definitely did this on purpose, he was too humble. General Li, I've admired you for a long time. Tale, who is also a veteran in officialdom, straightened up his expression instantly. Come on, General Tari, get in the car. Today I specially ask someone to cook Chinese food for you to taste together. Leeching and Tyr walked side by side towards the car, and happened to pass by the guided missile vehicle. Oh, General Tyr, to be honest, this is the only big treasure I have now, and I carry it with me wherever I go. Leeching patted the car door, shook his head and said. Tyr had a constipated look on his face, and he just cursed in his mind, Maid, can this Leeching be any more stupid? Finally, the two of them got into the car. In fact, the negotiation team they led was nonsense, and they had the final say on everything. The negotiating team is just covering up. After getting in the car, Leeching put away the exaggerated expression on his face and became serious. Tyr was also startled by the change in his expression. General Tyr, are you here not just for negotiation? Leeching stared at Tyr unblinkingly. General Li, why did you say that? He was shocked by Leeching's blunt words. Can such a thing be said in the car? Shouldn't we find a secret room, turn off the lights, light candles, and talk secretly? Haha, General Tyr, Shuha will not give up the position of president so easily. Leeching smiled meaningfully and stopped talking. Until after dinner, Leeching never mentioned this matter again. Tyr, on the other hand, always looked absent-minded while eating. General Tyr, if you don't mind, let's go swimming together? Just leave the negotiation to the negotiation team. Leeching invited. Okay, I also like swimming. Tyr's eyes flashed and he immediately nodded in agreement. The two of them changed into their swimsuits, and their respective guards were standing guard not far away. General Li, I know you have a grudge against our military because of the Hua massacre, but in fact, only some Javanese people participated in the Hua massacre. You know, the Javanese family is the only one, and we. Tyr shook his head, showing a look of helplessness. Leeching glanced at Tale. His performance was relatively professional, and a layman wouldn't be able to tell anything about it. Humph, General Tyr, sometimes indulgence is also a crime. Leeching snorted lightly. Let's get back to the subject. My demand is very simple, the independence of Liaonia province and the Liaonia Islands, and we should not interfere with the river. Leeching's immediate conditions shocked Tyr. Impossible. Tyr said that these three words had a vibrato, and once Liaonia became independent, he would become a full-fledged trader. The subsequent reaction will be greater. The Chinese will become independent, other ethnic minorities will follow suit, and the entire Java will be scattered. Tyr waved off the approaching guards. General Li, your conditions are simply impossible. The impact will be too great. Tale swam to Leeching and said softly. Leeching didn't speak, and still looked serious, but his expression was a little thoughtful. When Tyr saw that there was a door, he kept persuading Leeching in his ears. An hour later, Tyr felt that his lips were blistered and his body was wrinkled. Well, since General Tyr is so sincere, okay. The independence issue will be put aside for the time being, but I want a high degree of autonomy for Liaonia province and the Liaonia Islands. When Tyr heard Leeching's words, his face became tangled. A high degree of autonomy means enjoying independent administrative power, legislative power, independent judicial power and final adjudication power. To put it simply, it means recognizing that Liaonia province and Liaonia Islands belong to Java, but everything is autonomous, which is no different from a country within a country. General Ter, don't forget that we have nuclear weapons that can strike from a distance, which is unique in Southeast Asia. Li Qing bewitched. Ter's eyes lit up. Yes, after Liaonia province became autonomous, everything in Huachen would belong to Java in name. Java would become the first country in Southeast Asia to possess nuclear weapons, and its international status would be greatly improved. Why didn't I think of it? Ter was delighted. It seems that it is not a bad thing for Huachen to possess nuclear weapons. As long as it is used well, it will become a good thing. Li Qing's words instantly led Ter's thinking astray. Also, I now represent the Huachen and firmly demand that Shuha step down. As long as Shuha does not step down, our Huachen will not stop its resistance. Li Qing made a righteous statement. This sentence hit the nail on the head for Ter. His purpose of coming here was to get Shuha to step down and take over. Well, high autonomy is not impossible. Other ethnic freedom organizations. Ter secretly glanced at Li Qing. He knew that Li Qing was very influential in other anti-government armed organizations. Of course, the larger organizations such as Yaqi and Baya are also seeking national independence, and they didn't talk about high autonomy. Li Qing pretended to be indifferent and said. Ter instantly understood what Li Qing meant. Other organizations can just give the empty name of a certain ethnic autonomous region. Of course, other anti-government armed forces are very dissatisfied with Shuha's rule. This is our consensus. Li Qing and Ter smiled at each other tacitly. Basically, they achieved their goals. This is a win-win situation. The two jointly formulated the terms and planned to sign the agreement tomorrow morning. Late at night, in Li Qing's room. Ao, what did you find? Li Qing sent Ao's team to keep an eye on Ter's guard regiment for a day. Brother, I didn't find anything specific. It's just a little strange that Ter's Lieutenant General Tisea had too much contact with one of the guards. Li Qing touched his chin stubble. He guessed right, Shuha really had a backup plan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 319. The weather in CK is sunny, and the breeze carries the smell of the sea, making people feel relaxed and happy. Naval Base Conference Room. Li Qing and Ter both had smiles on their faces. They looked at the agreement and nodded to each other. General Li, on behalf of the Javanese government, I agree to the establishment of the Liaonia Chinese Autonomous Region proposed in your agreement. As for your proposal on behalf of the Chinese people to remove Shuha as president, I will convey it to Congress in a timely manner after I return. Talay pretended to read the agreement and said. After saying that, he looked calm, stood up, adjusted his military uniform, and bowed to Li Qing. On behalf of the military, I apologize to the Chinese who were killed and injured in the Hua-Tu incident. After we return, we will carry out internal rectification and eliminate the bad apples. Watching Talay's performance, Li Qing also stood up straight and said, General Talay, I believe everyone knows that the massacre of Hua was not led by the military, at least it was not ordered by you. In the future, the Liaoning Chinese Autonomous Region will continue to support the military. Square. The two of them stretched out their right hands to shake each other across the table. This scene was recorded by the photographer. Then there was a standing ovation. General Li, please. Please. The two sat down at the same time and began to sign the agreement. But at this moment, a guard behind Ter suddenly pulled out a pistol and shouted, Ter, you traitor. Talay was so shocked that he only had time to turn around. Bang. Gunshots rang out, and the entire conference room was in chaos. Ter's guards rushed towards Ter with all their strength. The guards on Li Qing's side began to take out their guns and guarding the surroundings. Okay, everyone, get out of the way. Li Qingfeng waved his hand lightly. The guard behind Talay, who had drawn his gun just now, covered his right hand that had been pierced by bullets with his left hand, and collapsed on the ground. Tizia's face was horrified, and he took out his pistol and pointed it at the guard. How dare you attack the general? Put down the gun. Ao directly held the pistol to Tizia's head. Tier's guards reacted and pointed their guns at Chiugang Ao. Not to be outdone, the Huajian side also pointed their guns at the opposite side. The atmosphere became solemn and the smell of gunpowder became stronger and stronger. Talay looked at Li Qing with a livid face. General Li, what do you want to do? No way, General Tier, you didn't even notice this. These two men of yours are trying to kill you. Li Xin pointed at Tizia and the guard slumped on the ground. Tier heard Li Qing's reminder, looked at Tizia, and then looked at the pistol that the guard dropped on the ground. Haha, I hunt geese all year round and almost got my eyes pecked out. Tier understood everything in an instant and shook his head mockingly. He never thought that Tizia, who had been with him for so many years, would betray him. After all, they were of the same race. Tizia was the one who promoted him with his own hands. It was he who promoted a small soldier to the position of lieutenant general. General, don't listen to his nonsense. This is deliberately framed by me. How could I betray you? You have always been like a brother and a father in my heart. Tizia explained emotionally. Tier glanced at him and said nothing. Instead, he waved to the guards and said, put down the gun. After receiving the order, the Tier guards immediately put down their guns, looked around with caution, and vaguely used their bodies to block Tier, fearing that the accident would happen again. Talay turned around and said to Li Qing, General Li, do you mind giving me a quiet room? Li Qing looked at Tizia with a smile, no problem. Take them two away and give them a good trial, Tier said to his confidant. Obviously he believed most of Li Qing's words, because Li Qing had no reason to harm him at all. If he died here, Li Qing would be hard-pressed to defend himself, and the entire Javanese military would not let him go, even if he had nuclear weapons. Who is the biggest beneficiary of Tier's death here? You can think of it with your toes. His guards took Tizia and the assassin out. Tier sat on the chair in a depressed mood. His home was almost robbed, and Li Qing even laughed at it. The most important thing is that he was rescued by Li Qing. Now I owe him a big favor. Li Xin waved everyone back, and Tally ordered the guards to retreat. Hey, if my guess is correct, it was Shuha's design to have you come to negotiate with me. Li Qing smoked a cigarette and looked at Tier playfully. Hey, after working with him for so many years, I originally only planned to send him to prison. I didn't expect this bastard to want my life. Tier no longer concealed his anger. He didn't expect Shuha to be so vicious, and now he wanted to tear Shuha into pieces. How about it? Do you want me to help you kill him? Li Qing turned his eyes, straightened up and whispered. Tier glanced at Li Qing and touched his chin. What are the conditions? Simon Province. Tier rolled his eyes. He wanted to take advantage of it. He was not satisfied with occupying the Liaonai province and the Liaonai Islands. He also wanted to occupy the Simon province. Forget it, I'll handle it myself. After all, after sending him to prison, there will inevitably be bumps and bruises. Li Qing's eyes were full of disappointment after being rejected. After all, the geographical location of Ximen province is also quite good. Talay was silent for a while, and now he came back to his senses. It turned out that Shuha was planning to kill two birds with one stone. Kill yourself and put the blame on Li Qing. Turning all attention to the China formation, Shuha himself stood on the moral high ground and accused the Chinese formation. Hey, when the time comes, it will be the Huajian that will be criticized, and the Shuha side will become the weak ones, tisk tisk. Half an hour later, Tizia knelt in front of Tyr and said something that proved his suspicion. Tizia, what conditions did Shuha give you to betray me? Tyr asked, looking at Tizia who had 5 fingers cut off. General, this is Shuha's plan. He said that as long as you die, he will fully support me in becoming the next Navy Admiral. Tizia explained tremblingly. As the Sundanese second largest figure in the military, he is very likely to be elected as a Navy Admiral in the next term. However, he ignored one premise, that is, Tyr was safe and took a back seat. He and Tyr were one, and both prospered and suffered losses. It's not that he doesn't understand this, but due to the greed in his heart, he will do it even if there is a slight chance of success. After all, the position below one person and above 10,000 people is so tempting. Take it down. Tyr didn't even look at Tizia, as he had already sentenced him to death in his heart. But we can't let him die now. When the court goes to court, he will still be needed to correct Shuha. Thank you so much this time, I owe you my life. Tyr sincerely thanked Li Qing for saving his life. Old Lei, I don't want your life, give me the province of Ximen. Li Qing said deliberately jokingly. Shameless guy, don't even think about it. Humph. Retta snorted softly and made up his mind that when he was elected president, he would keep an eye on every inch of land. The relationship between the two has become much closer because of this incident, and now they talk like old friends. Of course, friends among politicians are all roughly equal in strength. Fortunately, Big Baby gave Li Qing extra points, otherwise Tyr would not be polite to Hua Zhen. If the difference in strength is too big, haha, if we sign the agreement now, we will turn around and eat you, believe it or not. So there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, only eternal interests. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 320. Leda did not stay long and went directly to Asa and Baya provinces. The anti-government forces in these two places were the largest except for the Chinese front. Give them an empty name and let them calm down. As for the other 2 or 3 kittens, we directly sent troops to quell them. Jakarta D, Office of the President. It was late at night, Shuha did not turn on the light, and stood quietly in front of the window, watching the lights and feasting downstairs. Everything in this country should be under my control. Shuha tightly held the wine glass in his hand. He has been in power in Java for 30 years. He used the wealth of the Chinese to gain power 30 years ago. 30 years later, he still wants to use the wealth of the Chinese to consolidate his shaky rule. It's just that this time it is doomed to fail because of nuclear weapons and the Chinese named Li Qing. Just now, he received news of Tizia's failure. Now his enemy not only has the Hua formation, but the military's Tyr will not let him go. Now his only way to survive is to flee overseas. Hateful. Shuha slammed the wine glass in his hand on the ground, causing broken glass to fly everywhere. He turned around and picked up the landline phone next to the table and pressed a few numbers. After the call was connected, he pressed a few numeric passwords. Hi, hello, nice to serve you. Give me $5 million. Please name the objects to be cleaned up. Li Qing, the leader of the Hua formation. After inquiry, the leader of the Huazhen, Li Qing, is worth more than $5 million and can only take action once. Please confirm. Please enter your password. Okay, the order has been placed. Your order has been accepted. Thank you for your visit. Shuha listened to the busy tone on the phone and laughed sinisterly. This was how his predecessor died. He was a huge killer organization all over the world. He couldn't kill Li Qing if he didn't believe it. It's a pity that now he has to flee overseas and funds are being transferred. $5 million is already his limit. There are many ways to use money overseas, and it cannot be used to simply vent your anger. Shuha took one last look out the window. The scenery in Yagadi was so beautiful, and murmured, "I hope I can come back in my lifetime." After saying that, he walked out of the door without looking back. News of Shuha's escape abroad quickly spread throughout Java. Li Qing saw the news of Shuha's escape in the newspaper and smiled. This Tyr said he wanted to kill Shuha, but now he deliberately lets Shuha escape. It seems that this is also a weapon to avoid the rat. The rat has a secret that no one knows about. Crow curled his lips when he heard what his eldest brother said. These politicians are full of bad ideas. They have 800 thoughts in one sentence. They are so damn despicable. Ajin, don't you think so? Gao Jing crossed his arms and looked at the ceiling without saying a word, but he was thinking in his heart, Brother Crow, is it a tiger? Doesn't this bring the eldest brother in? Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you think so? Crow turned his head and looked at Zhang Qiandan, Ao, Zhang Guishan, Tian Yangsheng, and others around him. Some were talking in pairs, some were picking their ears, and some were adjusting their shiny leather shoes. Crow suddenly felt a slight chill in the back of his head, and finally reacted in his heart, haha, brother, I'm not talking about you, you are not a politician. Yes, I know. Li Qing patted Crow on the shoulder, I just got the news that there are pirates on Amborna Island. Go and eliminate them. Crow. Everyone knows that all the Javanese monkeys in the Lion Islands have been wiped out. How can there be any pirates? This is not Somalia. Let our overseas brothers find out Shuha's whereabouts. There was no way Li Qing would let go of Tu Hua's executioner. Overseas. Overseas is not a place outside the law. It is easier to take action overseas. In the next few days, Li Qing focused on sorting out the resources of Liaonia province and Liaonia Islands. To be honest, in Java, as long as you work hard, getting rich is the same as having fun. The Chinese Autonomous Region spans the Strait of Malacca, the South China Sea and the Strait of Bihala, and faces Malaysia and Singapore across the Strait of Malacca. It directly strangles the throat of Malacca. There are many terminals in Shenzhen and Hong Kong, and the navigation industry alone is extremely profitable. In addition, Li Qing discovered oil, natural gas, rubber, bauxite, tin ore, palm oil, and rubber. In particular, the Misi oil field in the Autonomous Region is the largest oil field in Southeast Asia. It can be said that the Autonomous Region can make money even while lying down, but it is a pity that the Javanese monkey does not know how to take advantage of it, which actually gives Li Qing an advantage. A country cannot live without a king for a day, so Tyr finally took the throne of the president. On the same day, he announced the official renaming of the Liaonia Chinese Autonomous Region, Yaqi Special Administrative Region, and Bia Special Administrative Region. At the same time, Li Qing delivered a speech on the Autonomous Region TV station, announcing that the Chinese Autonomous Region was established and would continue to support Tyr's resolution to safeguard sovereignty and complete the unification. Li Qing doesn't mind selling Tyr well, after all, he has gained all the respect in the Huazhen. Basically, all the Chinese in Java flocked to the Chinese Autonomous Region. Li Qing also recruited many talents among the Chinese, and the government agencies of the Autonomous Region were slowly established. Li Qing was elected as the governor of the Autonomous Region and chairman of the Military Commission. The Chinese admired Li Qing even more and began to spontaneously erect statues for Li Qing. Throughout the Chinese Autonomous Region, Chinese have become the first-class people, and signs prohibiting Java monkeys are hung on shops, restaurants, and hotels. Of course, the military cleansing of the Huazhen has ended, but the cleansing of the Autonomous Region's civil organizations is still going on in secret. Li Qing turned a blind eye to this behavior, just like the military's actions back then. When everything was on the right track, Li Qing also became a hands-off boss. On the beach of Natuna Island, Li Qing was fishing under a parasol, with Gao Jin and Zhang Qiandan guarding him on the left and right. Not far away, Crow, Zhang Guishan and others were playing beach volleyball with a group of big-breasted girls. Li Qing squinted his eyes, feeling that everything was so comfortable. These brothers followed him in the country of Java and built such a large base from nothing. So Li Qing specially held a party on Natuna Island for them to have a good time. Crow, this dog day, is a scoundrel again. He hangs on someone's chest and can't get up. Is this playing volleyball? Zhang Dongzhou couldn't hide his envy in his eyes. By the way, Zhang Dongzhou came here regardless of Li Qing's order, and Li Qing scolded him for this. Okay, go and have some fun too. I won't catch any fish while you're here. It's been 2 hours, and you're still feeding the fish. Li Qing was a little impatient. Sure enough, he was not suitable for this kind of tempering hobby. Gao Jin and Zhang Dongzhou were both very upset, and neither of them dared to say anything. Suddenly, the float moved, and Li Qing raised the rod with a happy face, and a bright silver fish came out of the water. Haha, it's finally hooked. Li Qing picked up the fish and took a closer look. Bright silver? Well, his eyes were flashed by the reflection in the distance. Not good.